So on the power or volume switch repair, this you'll want to perform if either your volume up, volume down, or your power button don't respond when you push them. You can maybe feel it recoil, but it may not respond at all. And what may have happened is that the switch itself, or maybe one of the connections on the back, is damaged. So we're going to show you how to replace it. Now what you may do is just inspect these little soldering points on the back and see if, on closer inspection, if it's cracked or damaged, and you may just be able to resolder it and fix that. But if you check it, everything looks fine, then you'll want to replace it. So we'll go to the close-up here, and I'll show you. Right here is the power switch, and that's what we're going to be working on. All three of the switches, the power, volume up, volume down, they're all the same. So you can use the same switch to replace any one of the three. I'm just choosing the power, but you can do the same repair for any of those switches. So we'll get our soldering station and our soldering iron. Make sure it's nice and hot, and then we'll get our wick, and we're just going to work around. There's 5 points. There's the two side guides basically that guide the switch into the board, and then there's the three. There's the three on the back. And you can see those right there. There's two on the sides that are thinner. There's a connection there and a connection there. And then there's one right in the middle. It's a little wider. And you want to make sure that you get the solder off of all of these. So anyways, we'll start on the side and then work our way around. So again, the solder, the wick, what it does, it basically you lay it on the point, and you lay your iron on top of the wick, and what it's going to do, it's just going to wick away the solder that's on that contact point. So you want to make sure, and this may take a little while. I mean, again, there's no big hurry to get this off. You want to make sure you do it properly so you don't end up damaging the board. Because again, this, like on the charging connector repair, you can actually damage the board by ripping the the lands off of the board. So if you damage the lands where this charging, all the little points of contact where they actually contact the board, if those are ripped off, then you'll damage and not be able to repair it. So once you get the switch off, we'll set the old switch aside, and you'll want to inspect the board just to make sure everything's nice and clean and that you have a nice fresh surface to work with. And then we'll get our new connector. Let me switch this. So there's the old one. Here's the new one. And this is where having a non-magnetic, even though it's still sticking, if your tweezers are magnetized, then you'll have a heck of a time trying to get this off and in place. But what we'll want to do is just line up the guides from the switch into the two holes on the board where those guides go. And once you get those lined up, then you can just kind of barely tack it in place and then work around connecting all of the points of contact. Now, one thing I didn't show you, but on the back side of this, there are the three contact points. The two on the sides are actually kind of underneath. Let me see here. See if I can turn that. The two on the sides are actually kind of underneath the connector. If you look really closely, you'll be able to see two little points that kind of shoot out from behind the centerpiece right here. And that's where you want to connect the solder. If you get the solder up on the top up here, it's not going to make the connection. So what you want to look for is the two little offshoots. Basically, they're pretty small, but they kind of come out from behind the center contact point right here, and that's where you want to connect the solder to. So just keep that in mind when you go to resolder it. So let's see here. I'm sorry if my hand gets in the way. I'm trying to do this without getting too in the way of the camera. Oops. See, that's what will happen with the magnetic tweezers. You can just lift it up, and then it's a pain to try to get it in place. Okay. Okay, so it's lined up for the most part. Just kind of get that one side, tack it in. I'm going to move to the other side. Oops. So tack that, we'll go back and re-tack this side. And again, you'll want to just take your time. I mean, this is not a, certainly sometimes not a fast repair. But what counts is you get it done right the first time, so you don't have to go back and redo it. Okay, so once you get the two side points tacked, now this is the important part, is getting the getting those two connection points underneath attached to the sides. I know it kind of looks a little easy, but it may take you a couple of tries to do it. And then last is that centerpiece. So as long as you inspect it, make sure everything looks like it has a nice solid, even, it'll almost be a shiny looking connection between the actual switch itself and the connection point on the board. It'll be a nice kind of even, shiny solder flow. And if that's what it looks like, the point's strong, then once you get all 5 of those points attached, You can test it, make sure it recoils how it should, and it does. And then you'll want to put it back in the phone and test it, but that's how you replace the switches.